jump straight into it. So we're going to start off with some fiction. Uh, there was a there's a famous writer, well-known writer named C.S. Lewis, and he wrote a lot of Christian books, but he also did this one series of children's stories, uh, and he sort of infused the biblical principles. That it's like an allegory of uh, the relationship between us and God. And in the Chronicles of Narnia, there's this character called Sashta, and Sashta experiences terrifying, disjointed journey filled with danger, abandonment, near-death experiences, feeling that his life is a series of random, chaotic events. Okay, so let's pause there for a minute. A series of random, chaotic events. Now, I bet most of us, right, can relate to this. Uh, Actually, if someone says they can't relate to it, they must be lying, or they're completely oblivious to the fact that there's chaos surrounding them. Uh, but everyone has experienced this, I would say, at every point of life. Uh, Now, anyway, at the end of it, Aslan. So Aslan is this lion, and he was the divine figure. He was a representative of Christ. Aslan reveals to Sashta that he was present in every moment, steering him away from danger, guiding him towards safety, and arranging circumstances behind the scenes. So, upon seeing the order behind the chaos, Sashta realizes that his life was never random, and the understanding of this hidden guidance transforms his fear into profound trust and faith. Now, the title of my message today is The House Will Come to Order. So this is a term that they use in Parliament. If you've heard parliamentary speeches before, uh, what these MPs, right, are the most childish people that you'll find. They will shout over each other. They will shout down. They will throw tantrums. They'll put their fists up. They'll do, and so there's a Speaker of the House. It is necessary. Without Speaker, it's chaos. So the Speaker of the House will bang the gavel and say, "The House will come to order. The House will come to order," until everyone's quiet. And if it's still not quiet, then they will reprimand them and they'll send them off. Uh, and they'll be suspended maybe for that session or a few sessions. Uh, but anyway, this is what we're going to talk about. The house will come to order. So what we're going to discuss today is number one, chaos. What it is, why it's there, and what comes out of it. Number two, we're going to look at divine order. And then number three, we're going to look at how we grow and mature in faith as a result of that. It's interesting times that we're living in, right? Because it seems like there's chaos all over, right? The world is at war. Sabrina's work life has been disrupted because of the chaos. But I want you to look at this. I've been looking at certain things, right? Now, these, like, again, I'm not saying anything prophetically or anything like that. I'm not claiming anything. But I look at coincidences. I love to see patterns in things because patterns are never coincidental. They reveal something, and for the ones who pay attention, it just sets you on alert. Right? It's not to put meaning to something and say this is what it is and this. No, but it's to say, okay, there's something here. I'm going to be prepared for this. Now, Iran has been in this state for 47 years. President Trump is the 47th president. These numbers are not random. But why does it have to coincide like that? There's order behind it. It seems chaotic. It seems like, oh, this person just come, but there's order behind it. And God reveals order through these things that seem like coincidences. He's letting you know, I'm at the back. I'm behind all of these things. And then there's, of course, the first attack that happened fell on the day of Purim, a Jewish celebration. And if you look at the lead up, right, 2005, Purim, like this year, on the day of Purim, on the night of Purim, there was a blood moon. If you look at the past few years, 2025, it was not on Purim, but just before. 2024, 2025, closer, not on Purim, but getting closer. And then 2026, right on Purim. And then the timing, 3rd of March at 3:33 a.m. in the morning. Like, when you see these numbers, they're not just random numbers. There is a pattern unfolding. It's for us to pay attention, not to say, this is it, the Lord is saying, the end is here. No, but to be aware, to be on high alert already. Okay, what does this mean? And if you need to go and seek God for it, you seek God. But this is what we're called to do in the midst of chaos. It's looking for God in the midst of things. Now, chaos is not new. The Bible opens up with chaos. In Genesis 1, you find words like there was darkness in the deep, formless, void. These are all words that depict chaos. Okay, this language depicts chaos. But how does that make sense? Like, didn't God create the heavens and the earth? Does that mean that God created chaos along with it? Now, anyway, the first thing that God does is he introduces light. Okay? Let there be light. This was not the sun, the moon, and the stars just yet, yeah? Because that came on day 4. This was the light of his presence. So he introduces the light of his presence into the space first. Then he goes on a 6-day journey of introducing what? Order. He introduces order. Creation was a work of establishing order into chaos. Okay? And notice he doesn't do it like magic. It wasn't a snap of finger. Now, this is God we're talking about. If he wanted to say everything, it could have been done like that. But even he took 6 days to do it bit by bit, because he was showing to us. He takes time, he puts in the work, and he reveals to us that there's a process for everything. You can't just go and pray, Lord, help me with this area, and then leave it. It's not just a magic release that you say it and it happens. There is a work that goes into reinstating order. And you'll notice that even in creation, he doesn't just speak them out. He doesn't just declare it. He proceeds to make it himself. Okay, we'll look at this a little bit later. And then finally, it results in new life, new beginning, and what is life producing. Okay, so first, let's look at chaos. Let's try to understand chaos. All right, the main question: did God create chaos? If it was there right from the beginning, and I'm gonna answer this by asking another question: did God create darkness? If it was there from the very beginning, it was there from the very beginning. The Bible opens up saying darkness was in the deep. Did God create darkness? It's an easier one for us to tackle, to understand the concept, because we know he did not create darkness. Okay? And we know that the first thing that he does is introduce light, the light of his presence. Okay? In the same way, the same thing applies here. God did not create chaos. Just like the darkness is the absence of light, of God's light, chaos is the absence of God's order, his presence in that space. So what does he do? He introduces his presence into that space. Now, one of the first times that there was mass orchestrated chaos, right? Everyone was affected, was during the times of Noah. This was the flood. Now, this was elemental chaos. The elements came into power and they destroyed. They brought chaos, complete chaos, and everything was destroyed as a result. Okay? And then another instance that you have is at the Tower of Babel. Here he caused each one to speak in different languages, and it brought confusion, it brought chaos. Chaos is in everything. It's everywhere. Every situation, every circumstance, everything that we go through, it is there. Because all it does is, it's not something that's created. Its existence is because of the absence of God's order in the place. Okay? Now, there are two ways that we can view chaos in our lives. Okay, yeah. Now, as discussed above, one is the presence of God is not in that space of our lives, or it's not allowed to operate in that area of our lives. Okay? So we see this with the Israelites in the wilderness, constantly rebelling, doubting God. And then Psalm 78:41 explicitly says this: they turned back and tempted God and limited the Holy One. Okay, we see this also in Mark 5:17. Jesus healed a man possessed by many demons, casting them into a herd of pigs. The people of that region were terrified and they asked him to leave. Okay, so Jesus obeyed their request and departed, choosing not to operate in a space where his presence was not wanted. We also see this in Mark 6:5. When Jesus returned to Nazareth, the people were familiar with him as a carpenter, son of Mary, and they took offense to his teaching. They did not believe that he was the Messiah because of what they knew of him. Okay? And the Bible clearly states in that story that he could not do any great miracles there, except lay his hands and on a few sick people and heal them. So this is a result of a lack of honor, a lack of trust, unwillingness to submit, surrender, all coming from what? A lack of understanding of order, right order. Okay, number two, how we view chaos in our lives, right? Number two, it's when things seem chaotic or confusing to us, but God is actually right in the center of everything. Okay, so one, God is not allowed to operate. The other, he's right in the middle of it. Isaiah 55:8-9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts your thoughts. Meaning that there are going to be times where it seems chaotic, but God is actually in the middle of it. Now, the reason why we cannot understand it, comprehend it, or perceive it is because his ways are much, much higher than ours. There are going to be things that we don't understand. There are going to be things that we can't comprehend. He's not playing at our level. But we need to trust. If we trust, okay? So again, this is something that we see everywhere in the Bible. In the book of Esther, Esther was an orphan in a foreign land, later forced into a royal harem. Her situation seemed chaotic. Is anyone going to look at someone who goes into prostitution or like into I don't want to say prostitution, but a harem-like situation and think she's in the will of God? Yeah. Not a single person is going to be saying that, because we judge based on the facts that we know. All right? But God was arranging the events at the back, behind the scenes, to place her in a position to save the Jewish people. She was right smack in the middle of what God had in store for her. But if she focused on the fact that, oh, why can't I have parents like everyone? Why do I have to be in this situation and go and please the king and this and that? If she complained and she saw issues with it, she would not have been able to be used for what God was orchestrating in the back. And you see, the Bible clearly says, for such a time as this. She was prepared for such a time. Everything that happened to her was for such a time as this. In Jeremiah 29, the nation of Israel was conquered, destroyed, and taken into exile by the Babylonians. It looked like the end of their faith. But God was using this time to purify them. During the chaos, God told them through Jeremiah that he still had a plan for their welfare, and it was not for evil, to give them a hope and a future. And then finally, the crucifixion of Jesus. It would have appeared to be a total victory for evil. A chaotic end to ministry. Like he was going around preaching all these things for 3. And you saw this even with the disciples. They were cast down. They thought it's all gone. It's ended. This is the end of it. What to do now? However, it was actually the ultimate victory, where God was using the darkest act of humanity to pay for sin and provide salvation for everyone. You know, there's a field of study in it's interdisciplinary science, and it combines mathematics as well, that studies systems that look random and unpredictable on the surface, but they actually have patterns underneath, and it's called the chaos theory. And what it says basically is that many complex systems appear to be in disorder aren't truly random. There are hidden structures, connections, feedback loops, constantly influencing what happens next. One thing to the next, one thing to the next. Everything is in order. And small parts of systems may resemble large parts, or may resemble the whole thing. And this is what some scientists call self-similarity. This theory was posited by this scientist by the name of Edward Lorenz. Now, one of the most famous things that have come out of, and this one you might be familiar with, that came out of the chaos theory is called the butterfly effect. There was even a movie about this, I think. Okay, it describes how very small changes in the beginning of a system can lead to huge differences later. So in other words, tiny actions can have large repercussions. Okay, and the metaphor for for the name, it actually came from the analogy that they use, that a butterfly flapping its wings somewhere in Brazil could cause or deter a tornado from happening somewhere in Texas. That's the effect. You know, you wouldn't see it, but there is a string of connections. And the reason why I showed that is, see, even scientific research, right, shows that not everything is random and chaotic. There's an order behind it. If you look beyond, there's an order behind it. Science proves it. And these are people that don't believe in God, right? Because you see, they kind of attribute it to God. They will say something is orchestrating at the back. There is order. It doesn't seem random, but we don't know who's orchestrating. Now, this is the difference with us. We can attribute it to God. We know what that order is. We know what is keeping things in. But first, we have to understand it. Okay? So how does this affect us, like as people? We have to look at the effects of chaos. All right? Now, for some, it creates intense stress. It feels overwhelming. Emotions flood. Your body goes into survival mode. You either shut down or you go into fight and flight mode. Everything feels urgent, like, you know, imbalances. Chaos will bring imbalances in our responses. And then on the flip side, you have people who love chaos. They live for it. I'm like that. So these are the last minute people. The people who will just drag everything on right to the last minute and then run on adrenaline. And here's the thing. It seems great because you're focused, your position, you can do it, but it's crazy, because what you're doing is you are setting the stage to invite chaos in, and it becomes an addiction. So then you go, so like adrenaline rushes, like people who go and do like skydiving, and they're inviting risk and chaos into their lives, and it's not healthy. So both sides. Okay. Now, sometimes it can be also a defense mechanism. Stability can seem familiar. Peace feels uncomfortable. You know, if everything is so chill. I remember uh, the first time I went to Australia, and I went to bed at night, and I couldn't sleep because it was quiet. It was pin drop silence, and I was just like, oh man, this is so unnerving. I'm used to the noise. I'm used to the cars going by, and you know, and it's not just what I hear, it's also the thought. Like, here I can, if I'm desperately hungry, 3 o'clock in the morning, I know I can find some good food. Anyway, nothing. You're not going to find anything outside. You don't leave the house. Past 8 o'clock, you don't leave the house. There is absolutely nothing. It's just darkness. So people get used to these patterns. Like after a few times, then I sort of got adjusted to it. Like, but it took a bit of time. Okay, so this is the whole thing about chaos, right? It's always there. It's how we navigate through it. Okay? But if we look at God's model, within the chaos, he introduces first his presence into the space. His presence contains the chaos. It works all the things at the back, the things that make it not random. Okay? So amidst the chaos, God's presence is introduced into the space. Now, for the individual, this could be point of salvation. This could be your daily time. Apostle was talking about the daily consecration, the daily dying to self every day. These are all the points where we invite God into the space. His presence is invited into our lives. Philippians 4:6-8 says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds." Now, if we look at the two stories that we were talking about earlier, right, you will see that the presence of God in the midst of it all bring peace, especially when things make the least sense. Okay, in Genesis 6, because of the widespread evil, God decides to wipe out the entire world. Okay, Genesis 6:9, it reads, "Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time." Okay, I want you to pay attention to that. It wasn't that he was blameless. He was blameless among the people of his time. Okay, God recognizes that the fallibility of man. He recognizes it. What he's expecting from us is obedience, faithfulness. Can you follow what I say, and can you do it all the time? Can you keep following until the very end? That's what he's looking for. And we'll look at that a little bit later. Okay. Oh wait, we are looking at it here. Okay, so that's a key right here, right? He walked faithfully with God, meaning that the presence of God was with him in everything. And because the presence of God was with him, God was preparing him for the chaos. Okay? So that it wouldn't consume him, so the chaos wouldn't consume him. So God gave him instructions: you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. He gave him the process and what needs to happen to manage the chaos, to deal with the chaos. And then you look on the flip side, if we look at the story of the Tower of Babel, now you know that the Lord was not in this endeavor. This was their personal ambition for their personal gain. And as such, there was no preparation to handle the chaos that was to come. When the chaos and confusion came, it was intended also to come to disrupt, cause division, abandon the project. It never got built. They were separated. So chaos, right? The effect of chaos, when God is in the middle of chaos, right in the midst of it, it will draw everything together. It will keep safe. When God is not in the middle of it, his presence is not there, it will cause abandonment, division, and disruption. Now, the only way that we can endure chaos and come out victorious is if God is in the midst of it. And the presence of God is allowed to operate in every area of our lives. We can't keep some spaces and then give him some, and but this requires obedience and faithfulness. Now, I will ask you today, how much of your life is submitted and surrendered to God? How much time do you allocate to spend with him? I'm not just talking about like going up, quick prayer, and out, but the space that you give to listen to him as well. Do you have the necessary tools, weapons, strategies to deal with any chaos that can come your way? Here's the thing, chaos is everywhere. You deal with it every day, in maybe 10, 15 times. Every circumstance, every situation that comes up, there's chaos right there in the midst of it. Have you invited the presence? Do you have the tools and strategies to deal with it? See, many of us think of chaos as these really big problems, like big issues. And then we think, oh, chaos. But it's much more than that. See, Sarah was 90 years old, Abraham's wife. Sarah was 90 years old when she was to give birth to Isaac, the promised son. Now, because it goes against the norm, 90 years old, because it defies logic. 90 years old, giving birth. She laughs it off. She leans in to the chaos. It seems chaotic. It seems chaotic. But that chaos, God was using that chaos for His glory. He had purpose that was meant to come out of it. So instead of trusting God through the chaos, she doubted. She laughed. It's in all these things. Everything that seems like a deviation, that seems like can't be, that is chaos presenting itself. And if we're able to recognize chaos, we're able to deal with it. Now, whether chaos is physical, natural, mental, emotional, or even spiritual, the first thing that determines how we come out on the other side of it is the presence of God in the midst of it. Now, the Israelites only made it to the promised land because the presence of God moved with them. Otherwise, they would have died. And you see, the ones who did not have the presence of God with them did perish. They did not make it to the promised land. Okay, now what does the presence of God invite? What does it bring in? It brings in divine order. Now, this is why it's important. Okay, just as darkness is the absence of light and is only exposed with the introduction of light. You see, you're not going to think something is dark unless you have a comparison of light. The light reveals the state of darkness. Okay, so is chaos the absence of order, and the introduction of order exposes existing chaos. Okay, a lot of people don't see the chaos, but it's only when order is set that suddenly the chaos comes to light. Okay, there's a lot of advice now going on in the net, on the like you have these reels and all talking about like business ventures and stuff like that, right? And a lot of people are talking about these new business ventures. What some of these? And I think it was a couple of guys from like some Harvard grads or like Stanford grads, business school grads that recognized an opportunity and they jumped on it. So what they do is they buy up small, simple businesses. So they go for companies like car wash, laundromats, laundry services, all these kind of things that are simple businesses. It doesn't take a lot of, it don't need a lot to like deal with it. All once. So they know that the owner is like growing old, has to give it up. Kids probably don't want to deal with it anymore. And so they buy it. They buy it because they have a plan. They want to automate. Okay? They want to introduce systems and processes to make it a lot more efficient and productive. So now, here's the thing. They go in, and when they're going in and buying it, the guy who's selling it to them is going to look at it valued. Let's say he's got 50 clients a month, and the place is able to generate an income of like 100K a year. All right? He's going to sell it on the basis that it can generate 100K a year. Okay, so he says, okay, I'll sell it to you for 1 million. All right, thinking that, okay, it'll take you 10 years. This is a good deal for me. It'll take you 10 years to recover your capital. But these guys are going in on the basis that they recognize I can turn 50 clients productivity into 200. All right, that's 4x. Okay, that's 4 times greater. That means I can flip the profits annually from 100K to about 600-700K, because I'm also reducing costs. If I automate systems, then I also reduce staff. So if I had 6 staff before, I probably only need 2 staff now. So I'm bringing costs down and I'm increasing revenue. So when he goes in, he's thinking, in 2 years I can recover capital. Okay, in 2 years, this thing, everything that comes out of it is profit generating. So when he goes into the business, he's going to say, this is how things are going to be done now. 4 of you, not needed. Well, your jobs are going to shift. This is how we're going to do it. You're going to look at this. He lays out the process. Now, if the old guy is sitting and looking at this whole thing, he's been running the business for 40 years, and he's been running it to his knowledge fairly successfully. Okay, 40 years it's been able to give him an income. He's got extra. He can take care of his kids, do all the things that he needs, but he never gets wealthy. It's like a monthly paycheck. All right, now he's looking at these guys. The minute they introduce some of these things, and he would see the potential. Now he's going to be able to see what it exposes. The order that's being brought in exposes the inefficiency of the system that he had in place. Now, without that being introduced, you cannot see the inefficiency. He would have continued doing the same thing. When order is introduced into that space, then it reveals the inefficiency of the past systems, the chaos that was in the business before. So these guys, what they're doing is actually they have a good understanding of order. They know systems, they know processes, and that's what they're doing, and they're making millions of it. Because once they set this up, it works, they start scaling. They do it okay? Anyway, in Genesis 1, the earth begins with this language that depicts chaos. And what does God do? He introduces order. Okay? What does he say? He says to the sky, you go up here, you separate from the waters below. Okay? And then he lays the boundaries. He says, water, you only stay this much. The earth will be here. Stars, you go over here. Moon, you go over here. Everything he puts in place, he's creating order. All right? Now, and this is the same thing you see when God gave the Israelites the law. And we have to understand this as believers, right? The law was not given for our obedience. Okay? Now, some people probably take me out for saying something like that. But I want you to understand where I'm coming from. The law was not given so that we can follow and obey. The obedience is an overflow of the posture of the heart. It's not a set of rules that we're following. So the law is not given for us to obey and meet a standard. The law is given to test and reveal where the chaos is. Okay? Now, when the rich man told Jesus, all these laws I've held since I was a kid, what more do I need to do to enter heaven? Now, he wasn't asking what more. He was making a statement. He was saying, take note. I'm a holy person. I'm the kind of person that should get into heaven without question. Because I kept all these things. I've done all, I met the standard. But he still feels like something is missing. So it doesn't make sense to him. I should be the type of person who gets, but why do I feel like something is still not missing? Something's still not working. All right? So Jesus breaks it down with one statement that revealed what? The state of the heart. It wasn't about the law. It wasn't about meeting the standards. God says, now go, sell all that you have, give it to the poor. Now, if we're being honest, if we were this rich man, we would have been like, wait a minute. This was not what we agreed on. This was never covenanted for. This was not in the laws. This was not in the rules. I followed everything that you said I was supposed to do. This isn't added. How can you just add something in and now hold me to a different? No, it's never about the standard. We're not called to meet a standard. The standard will be met when the heart is aligned. Okay, when the heart overflows with the desire to please God, the fear of God, the love of God, when the heart is overflowing with that, that standard will be the bare minimum. So what happens to this rich man? He gets offended. Now I know the Bible puts it very simply that he was sad and he said, I can't do this. But what was that? Offense. That was offense. Maybe in a more polite sense, but it was offense. Because here's the decision that he made. This is a man who understands and recognizes the importance of eternal living. He has lived his whole life pursuing eternal living. I am going to get into heaven. I'm going to live like this. I'm going to live in such a way that I get into heaven. Now he's confronted and he's chosen a temporal treasure to an eternal one. That's the decision that he makes. Okay, you take someone who doesn't understand stocks and shares, it'll be a simple decision whether to make a little bit of money, make a lot of money. They won't know how to decide. They'll be like, they both seem the same to me. And they might, but for someone who understands it, they'll be like, okay, no, I'm going to hold off on this because the long game is really good. So I'm going to hold on to do that. This is what he was doing. He understood the system. He understood what he was trading. And he still said, I can't. That is not stupidity. That is offense. I cannot accept you to be Messiah. I cannot accept what you're teaching. There was a rejection. Okay, now I want to use it to zoom in to order in relationships, because I feel like it's easier for us to see. All of us have relationships. Now we have to understand, right? Every single one of our relationships are purpose relationships. Okay, there is a reason why God connects you with one another and allows you to develop and grow in a relationship. It's the purpose in the relationship that sets the order in the relationship. All right, when you understand the purpose, you will recognize the order and you know how to walk in it. Okay, Amos 3:3 says, do two walk together unless they have agreed to do so? Okay, now sometimes it is to the edification and mutual growth. Okay, Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Sometimes it's for love and integrity. 1 Peter 4:8, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sin. Okay, and sometimes it's for wisdom and impartation. Proverbs 13:20, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fool suffers harm. Sometimes it's for serving the Lord. Joshua 24:15. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. And oftentimes, it's more than one of these things altogether. Okay? See, when I first came into contact with Apostle, this is about 2+ years ago, I first came into contact, I was speaking to a friend. Okay? So I thought I was speaking to a friend. Now, that relationship didn't continue because I thought she was interesting, or because she was prophetically accurate. It didn't continue because of that. It continued because God had purposed it. The reason I came to God, I didn't know it. She knew it. I didn't know it. I thought, oh, okay, but there was purpose. God had purposed the relationship, right? Now, very quickly that relationship shifted to take its intended form. Okay? Not as friends, but as leader, as spiritual mother. Okay? Because that's what God had intended for this relationship. Now, if she stops leading me, she defeats purpose in the relationship. This relationship becomes meaningless. In the same way, if I stop receiving from her, receiving the correction, taking the thing, doing what I need to do, if I stop doing that, if I reject it, then the relationship becomes meaningless. And when it does, then God can remove the relationship, because it doesn't serve purpose anymore. Okay? The relationship will meet its eventual end. Now, a relationship without purpose, it can't stand. Purpose determines the order in relationship. So if order cannot be maintained in the relationship, then it loses its purpose, right? Now, the reason why the rate of divorces are extremely high, they're the highest they've ever been throughout history, this day and age that we're living in, is because of the increasing disorder in marital relationships. Now, that will defeat purpose. Okay? So when people give excuses like, oh, we just fell out of love, or we just want different things now, or we're not compatible anymore, all these excuses, what they're really saying is the relationship has lost purpose. It's meaningless now. But what caused the relationship to become meaningless? Disorder. Not operating. There is order. There's an order that God had already for that relationship of husband and wife, and even children to come after that. That relationship has an order. And when that order goes out of whack, the relationship loses meaning. It doesn't serve its purpose. It's not what it's supposed to be. And the main thing that destroys order in relationships is familiarity. You see, we have to understand what God has called us to. God has called us to intimacy. All right? He's called us to be intimate with Him. He's called to be intimate with our spouse. He's called us to be intimate with our friends, with our that relationship. What is called for is intimacy. Okay? Now, there are different levels of intimacy. Okay? I'm not with Josh the way I am with God. I was going to say my wife, but that's what's not. But uh, but my relationship with him requires this level of intimacy. My relationship with my wife requires a different level of intimacy. My relationship with God requires a different level of intimacy. But the key is intimacy. So we got to find out what intimacy is. It's not familiarity. There's a huge difference. See, intimacy requires work. Okay? Intimacy requires really getting to know, getting down, knowing the person intimately. You're getting to know what is behind the person. All right? I'm not just asking, I'm not just making small talk. I don't come to Josh and say, hey, how's your week? I want to know, hey, how have you been doing? I want to know what you've been going through. Is it, like, can I support you in any way? Can I share your struggles with you so you don't have to do it alone? That's what I want. That is intimacy. It's not a touch and go kind of thing. Hey, how's your week? And then he says something, I'm like, okay, good. You know, it's caring enough. It's going out of the way. That's intimacy. It pushes you into a different space. Now, familiarity on the other hand, it mimics intimacy because it has knowledge, it has information. So it uses the information to mimic intimacy. But what does it do? You can see it in the fruit it produces. It breeds laziness. People become lazy in the relationship. They won't take an interest. They won't put in the work to build the relationship. There's a lack of care. There's an abandonment of responsibilities. Okay? Each of us have a relationship, and that relationship will bring about a duty of care, one way or another. What is the level of that duty? It depends on the relationship. But when we become familiar with one another, we break that. We'll start abandoning those responsibilities. I remember when I was going to college, right? First 2 weeks, I was early. Like, I'll be there. If class starts at 8 o'clock, I'm there by 7:30. I'm there by 7:30. I got my books out. I've got all my pens laid, everything like in order, neat, and because I like to see like the colorful markers and all. I don't know how much I actually used it, but I like seeing it like that. And so I'd set everything up, and I was ready for the class. Sit right in front. As time progressed, I got familiar with the system, with the process, and what happens. Then I'll be a little bit late. Like, I was like, oh, okay. No, it's 8:30. I've read this already. I've covered this. Familiarity, because of knowledge. I think I know certain things. I think I understand the system, and so then I can take advantage of the system. This teacher always comes a bit late. No, it doesn't matter whether the teacher comes late. My duty is to be there at a certain time. But familiarity will cause us to abandon responsibilities. But here's the hope that we have. You see, God doesn't abandon responsibilities. And his aim in all of it is to bring balance into our lives. He's introducing order to bring balance into our lives. It is not to chuck us out and say, oh no, you're not good enough. No, it is to bring us into right order so that we're balanced. Okay? If you have toxic patterns, so like, how do we deal with it? If you've got toxic patterns in your relationships, if there are imbalances in the way that you relate to people, how do you introduce order into that? Boundaries. You set boundaries, clear boundaries. Okay? This is how I can deal with it. So boundaries are order. They establish an order in the relationship. Look, you cannot cross this boundary. If you have issues with time management, you need a schedule. The schedule will bring order. And notice, the schedule is not something that you're striving to be. It reveals where you're wasting time. When you set aside, it's only when you set a schedule that you'll, oh, okay, I'm wasting too much time here, I'm wasting too much. If you don't have a schedule, you're not going to know. You're just going to go about doing your things, and then you feel like, why do I not have any time? Okay, the order will reveal and expose the chaos in that space. Same thing, if you've got chaos in your financial situation, you need what? You need a budget. You need to track your expenses. You need to know where the money is going. Because if you're just spending like that, you're not going to know. Like, you're not going to be able to see. Like, it wasn't until I put out a budget that I was like, oh, okay, I can cut this out. I can cut. I didn't know because I wasn't paying attention to it. And there was chaos there. And because I didn't pay attention to it and order was not introduced, nothing was revealed. The minute order was introduced, I saw all the gaps. Now, until order or a mechanism to bring in order is introduced into all spaces of our lives, we will not be able to recognize the chaos within. We have to welcome the order. We have to receive it. We have to allow for it to set up structures in our lives, in every area. Now, this is work. Now, why is it important for us to have order? What does it produce? It's not just about correcting the immediate spaces, it's not just about identifying where the issues are, but if you understand the work of order, it allows for you to even navigate life. There's a work that needs to be done on our part. An understanding of the order prepares the way for the work to be done. That is process. You see, even God laid out the order for himself. Okay, before he started doing the work. Okay? Now, I never took notice of this, but while I was preparing this, I was like, hey, okay, that's interesting. Now, in Genesis 1, right, we understand now that the work of creation was God establishing order. But notice that every time he declared something into creation, he then proceeded to make it. It wasn't just something that he spoke out. Genesis 1, 6-8. And God said, let there be a vault in the waters to separate the water from the water. So God made the vault. He declared it to be, and then he made the vault to separate the water. Okay? Genesis 1, 14-17. And God said, let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs and marks. And then he says, it goes on to say, verse 16, God made two great lights. Okay? Genesis 1, 20-22. Let the water teem with living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems and moves, and every kind of winged animal and whatnot. Okay? This is his process. He declares order. Okay? So he introduces himself into the space first. Where there's chaos, he introduces himself into the space to expose the chaos. And once the chaos is exposed, then he proceeds to establish order. As he establishes order, he puts in the work to see that the order bears fruit. Okay? Now, if God wanted to make, like we spoke about this, if he wanted to make it in one breath, he could have. But he chose to show us that there's a process. It involves a work to be done. And he did it himself. So if he does the work, what makes us think that we are exempt? He's showing us that you're always going to need a work to be done. The question is whether we are willing to get our hands dirty. Now, God will use the mouth of our leaders to bring the order and to bring correction. Now, if we can understand and recognize the order that is being brought in, it will compel us to what? Do the work. All right? You cannot stop at the telling, oh, that is interesting. That, it really helps me understand. Great. What does it produce? Does it propel you to do the work, to make the change, to actually bring the structures of order within the chaos? Now, I've never been in a space, right, where we've had these many SOPs. I've never been in a space where there's an SOP for the way that you sit. That's the level of detail. There's an SOP for the way that you walk in. There's an SOP for everything. Every department has an SOP. Everything is laid out clearly. There is a rule and right order to everything, right? And I've never seen this anywhere else. Okay? But this is why this place is set apart. Because of the work done. Now, this is a woman of God who has a deep understanding of order. She understands order. Because how do you know? It is reflected in the work that she does. She lays out the order. She's following the process that God has set out. Okay? She introduces God first, and then what she goes on to lay the order. She sets the structures for chaos to be contained. Now, let's look at why this is important. In Matthew 8, 5 to 13, the biblical story is a direct depiction of understanding order to produce what? Faith. A Roman centurion asks Jesus to heal his servant, but says, "You don't need to come all the way." As a military leader, the centurion understood structure. He tells Jesus, "For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell to one, go, and he goes. I tell to one, come, and he comes." Matthew 8, 9. All right? Now, he recognizes that Jesus held higher authority over sickness and nature, just as he held authority over his soldiers. And because he understands this orderly chain of command, he trusted that Jesus could command healing from a distance. And then Jesus says, what? "I have not found anyone in Israel with this much faith." Now, I want to bring to your attention, John the Baptist was in Israel. Mary, the mother of Jesus, was in Israel. All the disciples who then became apostles were in Israel. At that time, no less. Okay? In and around that time. And Jesus says, "I have not found this much faith in all of Israel." An understanding of order. When you understand order, it directs the way that you go about things. You understand authority. When you understand authority, you can walk in what? You can walk in honor. You can walk in trust. You can release. No, I don't need to control the situation. You better come here. I want you to touch him in this way. You don't have to do any of that because you understand order. So, understanding of order does what? It grows your faith. You want faith? You want faith to increase in your life? Stop praying about it. Start understanding order and acting on it. Understand order. Recognize the structures of order that are in place. Embrace the order. And if there are things that are revealing chaos in your life, use that to correct those spaces. Now, I want to end off with this. As we conclude, I want to tie it into the end result of everything. The gospel is a message of hope. And we can rest assured that if we walk right, that what flows from the hand of God is good. If we walk right, everything that proceeds from his hand, even though it doesn't seem like it, it is good. And I would just encourage every one of us not to limit the goodness of God. You know, sometimes we can limit it to certain things. Oh, I want a promotion at work. I want this car. We limit it to things that are so beneath him, the things that don't have real effect and impact. See, all those things will flow. They will flow naturally. But don't limit it to just that. There are greater possibilities. There are greater things that God has in store for you. Allow for the greater possibilities, for everything to come into fruition. All right? That is goodness. Goodness in your finances, goodness in your marriage, goodness in the way that you serve him. You see it in everything. But every one of the stories above, walking right, ended in new beginnings, rebirth, bounty all around. In the creation story, it birthed the most perfect place to live in. A beautiful garden, clear boundaries, everything provided for, don't have to worry. In Noah's story, it resulted in a fresh start, a new covenant, a wiping away of all the wickedness of the past, and instead of complete destruction, hope, new beginning. We can do this again. We can do this again. In the Exodus story, it resulted in generational inheritance and a land flowing with milk and honey. In the Roman centurion story, it ended with healing taking place and quite possibly this man being saved. Mark 12:10-11 says this, "Have you not read this scripture? The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." In the story of the Tower of Babel, there's an interesting detail in that story, right? The scripture makes explicit mention that they used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. This was both recording what happened at that point, but it also prophetically was saying what was going to happen. The builders rejected the stone. And the stone that was rejected now has become the cornerstone. And here's the other thing about like tar, right? It was used also in Genesis, in the story of Noah, but it was used the right way. It was used to seal. It is a sealant. Where else in the Tower of Babel, they used it to stick one brick on top of another. Yeah. Now, this is the thing about tar. It's a strong sealant, but it's a weak adhesive. It is not meant to be used as glue to stick. It will crumble. But as a sealant, it was really good. So if you look, even in the purpose of using the things that God has given, right, there is purpose attached to it. But the reason why, not to digress, right, there is a warning in the story of the Tower of Babel that if we're not building the right way, if we're not allowing for the right structures of order to be built in our space, this is what's going to happen. It will lead to division, it will lead to confusion, it will lead to abandonment and desolation. And this is the exact same thing that happened to an entire nation of Israelites. That land was devoid of anything. It was dead for the longest time. Not until 1946. It was a barren land. The message of God is one of hope, rebirth, renewal, everything good, bounty. These are the things that He has for you, but it requires us to walk in a certain way. It requires us to embrace the structures of order, put them in place, do the work that needs to be done, and enjoy the bounty. And I'm going to end with that.
What a good sermon. It's necessary to understand what I like to call divine chaos, divine disruptions. And sometimes that's needed. Of course, like Minister John Paul said, we need the discernment to differentiate between a divine chaos and a chaos that's not from the Lord. So if the Lord is allowing it, then what? There's purpose and there's good that can come out. It's needed. For example, the disruption and the chaos that's going on in the Middle East, for our Sabrina, it's bringing good because she can be with us in church for longer. And for you, the Lord will strengthen you through this time spiritually, and there's a good that will come out of this for you. But it's come out of a disruption and a chaos that is happening. But if we can recognize what these things can produce in the Lord, and on the opposite side of that is a chaos that is not from the Lord, and that we don't want. And He so eloquently, not just eloquently, with the wisdom of the Lord, spoke about order. God is a God of order. He spoke about divine order. What is divine order? Most people hate order, and that's why they don't get far in life and in kingdom. He defined godly order. He spoke to us about the purpose of a divine order and what that produces. It's very important. Different leaders are graced for different things. We have different strengths, but order, I've had a deep understanding for godly order from a very young age. And you will see it in the way God has called me to run the ministry, the businesses, even my personal relationships. And with that comes everything we spoke about, boundaries. And, because if I don't draw boundary lines, I cannot be for you what God has called me. If I become your pal, it defeats the divine purpose that the dynamic was meant to have. And I can't give you and pour out to you what God has meant. And if you don't receive me and respect me and show honor, then that's not going to work as well. Same with husband and wife relationships. The divine purpose, the divine order, even in a marriage, there needs to be a divine order. You are my husband, I will respect you and submit to you. You are my wife, I will love you like Christ loves the church. I will nurture you, I will protect you, I will provide for you. There's a divine order in that relationship, and if each party understands their role, see, marriage is a ministry. Both husband and wife are called to serve each other as they serve God. If God is the center of that marriage, I'm not talking about a worldly marriage. Yeah? There's a lot of distortion there. Let's not go there. But if we understand God's order and purpose for a kingdom marriage, a divine marriage, we will know that it's a ministry. Husband and wife are called as they serve God, and if God is the center of that marriage, they understand that they are to serve each other in different ways and in different roles. So if I go into the marriage thinking, well, I can get from the husband, I've missed the purpose. But if I go in thinking, how can I serve this man? How can I be his helpmate? How can I play the roles that God has, and if he does the same, the beauty of that marriage and how it can impact kingdom and the boundary lines. We don't cross certain lines. I don't interact then with males in a certain way. I don't receive messages in a certain way. Boundaries. I don't allow certain things and certain people in to guard that marriage so that it can fulfill its divine purpose. But it requires boundary lines, a guarding, an order that should exist even in that marriage for that relationship to reach its full potential. And the fruit of that is the husband and wife will enjoy beautiful relationship, companionship, glean from the fruits of the blessing of God's design for marriage. The same with any relationship, mentor, mentee, spiritual parent, spiritual child, spiritual leader, church, employer, employee. As an employer, if I don't know the boundary lines, the business will collapse. We thank God that God is a God of order, God himself, and we're meant to reflect his image daily. We also thank God if he allows a divine chaos and disruption in our lives. If it's a God thing, then we know that it is needed. We endure through it because then we know it's going to produce good fruit. It's going to produce the necessary that we may not even know that we need. Sabrina didn't plan to be here for this long. She took leave for the amount that she could take, X amount of days, but God had different plans. Girl, I'm going to disrupt your flying schedule because I need you to be here in church for longer because there's things that I want to point to you for your spiritual strengthening. And if we can learn, I had to learn how to go with, leave Australia, leave. Not everyone, has the same journey as me. Not everyone will have to up and leave just because they have a calling. Don't be afraid. Your journey will be yours in the Lord. But this was mine. But you see, it was a divine disruption to my life, to my comfort. I was at the peak of my career, to everything. We had to kind of recalibrate so many things. But because God was in it, the fruit that it produced, blew my mind. But it came from when I was the most comfortable in my career, in my life in Australia, in even my ministry. I was so comfortable. I was doing great. But there came the divine disruption. And I had to be able to discern that it was from the Lord and to quickly obey. If not, we wouldn't be here today. Don't reject the divine disruptions and the divine chaos, but also don't cause ungodly chaos for yourselves and for others. So as we stand to our feet today, there's encouragement in this. We as the people of God, we have eyes to see divine disruptions, and we embrace them because it's going to produce the greater glory. As we worship the Lord one more time, I'm going to open the altar.